Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a bit more news from Sony, this time regarding its new VR for the PlayStation 5 and in particular the new controllers. Let's talk about that. So a couple of weeks back, Sony did announce that the PlayStation VR was going to have a new headset that would come to the PlayStation 5. They didn't strictly call it the PSVR 2, but for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to refer to it as the PSVR 2. Now, myself, I was a massive fan of the PlayStation VR initially. However, it did have some drawbacks. Many of those drawbacks came down to two things. One, its tracking, because it used a camera to track the PS Move, the big glowing balls, and it wasn't that great. It felt good at the time, but if you're someone who tried any other VR, like the Valve or more recently like the Oculus Rift, you would find out that the tracking on the PSVR just wasn't that great. The other thing that was a bit of an issue for the PSVR was the Move controllers themselves, because they were old technology from the PlayStation 3 that they basically adapted to work with PSVR. So there was quite a lot of things missing from them, and unfortunately it didn't provide the best experience for end users. Now, what Sony have done today, and I will have some images on screen as I talk about this, is they've released images of what they're going to be using for the PSVR 2. And if you look at them, you can see that they've taken some design cues from the likes of the Oculus Rift controller. Now, I'm going to go through what it says on the blog here, just to confirm exactly what this new design is all about. So first off, each VR controller left and right includes an adaptive trigger that adds palpable tension when pressed, similar to what's found in the DualSense controller. Now, if you've played a PlayStation 5 game and you've played Astrobot's probably the best example. There's a part in that game where you've got to use a bow and arrow, and when you press down on the trigger, you almost get the feeling that you're pulling back the string, you get tension in it. When used in a VR setting, that's really going to help with immersion when you're doing things like picking up items and stuff, because you will feel resistance on the controller, which is going to make the game far more enjoyable and give you a far more engrossed VR experience. One of the other things they're adding is haptic feedback. The controller will have haptic feedback optimised for its form factor, making every sensation in the game world more impactful, textured and nuanced. Now, again, hark back to the PlayStation 5 here, the DualSense controller uses haptic feedback. And the best example I can use for this again is Astrobot. When you run across different surfaces in Astrobot, you get a different sensation via the controller, and the controller can deliver a sense of what you're doing. Translate that to a VR environment, and again, it's just making the whole experience completely next level. Now, the big rings across your hands, they're for finger touch detection. So it's like halos that sit across your knuckles. Again, a lot like what you get just now if you're using the likes of the Oculus Rift. Now, what these actually do is they can detect finger movement, meaning that can be translated into the game. So without actually pressing a button, you can actually move your fingers and you'll see your VR representation moving their fingers. So it can make like hand gestures and stuff like that a lot more natural within the game. The tracking is going to be controlled by the headset, so no camera this time, which is awesome, right? It's absolutely awesome. It'll be tracked by the VR headset and it will use the ring across your hand that you can see in the picture. Now, how this works in the Oculus, and I think it's going to be exactly the same, is there's several little lights, infrared lights that are within that ring, and the camera detects them, so when you're moving, it's constantly keeping track of where those little sensors are in your controller. Looking at the design, it looks like it's mirroring that, so I think it's safe to assume that the headset itself will have two front-facing cameras on it, but we'll need to wait and see until that comes out. But I'm really starting to think now that the PSVR 2 is going to echo a lot of the design cues that the Oculus Rift and the Oculus Rift, the Oculus Quest has. So that could be a big step up for VR. Action and analog sticks. The left controller contains one analog stick, triangle and square buttons, a grip button, the L1 and the L2 button, and the create button. The right controller has one analog stick, the circle and the cross button, a grip button, the R1 and the R2, and the options button. So if you look at this controller, basically put both halves together, you have the layout for a DualShock controller. Split it in half, one half's on the left, one half's on the right. That's the best way to look at it. So if you think of something like using the Joy-Cons on a Switch, half the controllers on one side, half the controllers on the other side, which means you're going to be able to have a lot more immersive experiences than you can currently have with the PSVR. Because if you've played games like Resident Evil, for example, that tried to give you a more open world environment, you had to do things like swing your arms left and right to walk forward as if you were walking. In theory, it seemed like it was a good idea. In practice, not so much. When you use something like the Oculus Quest, you have a thumbstick, and yeah, it can cause issues with motion sickness. That's something you just need to get used to, but it means that you can play an actual game rather than an experience, which is something that VR players are looking to do. So for me, looking at this controller, I am way more excited about PSVR than I was, which is saying a lot because I was already very excited about PlayStation VR. But I can definitely tell that we're going to get a much better experience this time around, because it's going to echo what you can currently get with the Quest. And honestly, guys, if you've tried the Quest, you'll know what I'm talking about. It plays a lot better than PlayStation VR. However, unless you're hooked up to a PC using it for PC VR, you can't really get those bigger, larger gaming experiences. And obviously, a PC, you have to have a fairly decent PC to run some of these. With the PlayStation 5, however, if you've already got a PS5 and you buy the PSVR 2, then you're going to have access to big, proper game experience. So we could be looking at AAA experiences for PSVR. And now that I've seen this controller design, I'm going to make a prediction now, and that is Sony have probably signed a deal behind the scenes to get Half-Life Alyx onto the PSVR 2. So do not be shocked to find out that Half-Life Alyx is going to be a launch game for the PSVR. Again, that is just a prediction from me, but I think it's a fairly safe prediction that we're going to probably see that. So anyway, guys, let me know in the comments down below. Are you excited for what the new generation of VR is bringing to console? Do you think VR is just a fad? Have you actually tried it? Let me know down below. I love it. I'd love to talk to you about it. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and as always, I will catch you on the next one, guys. See you later.